Welcome to the My Way podcast with Andrew Jones. This is where entrepreneurs share their way of running a business. We'll discuss what habits and strategy are required to scale a successful business. James, welcome to the My Way podcast. Thank you for coming on. I think just to start off, give the listeners a bit of a better understanding in terms of who you are and the background to Stori Cymru.
Well, shwmae, I'm James Owen. I'm a Welsh filmmaker and storyteller from Llanelli in West Wales, if you couldn't tell. And I absolutely love businesses and brands and helping them share their stories through film. So that's what we do, and that's what I do.
How long have you been in business now, James?
So Stori Cymru has been operating as a limited company for about 5 years, which I'm very proud because it takes a lot to get past that second, third year. So we actually had a bit of a party back in August last year, a few beers, to celebrate that. But yeah, 5 years we've been going as a business, but my sort of experience and my journey started quite a bit before that.
Okay. What were you doing before Stori Cymru? How did you get into filmmaking?
Well, filmmaking. So I've been a Christian about 10 years, okay? It all started from going to church. I started going to church. I got invited by a friend. At the time I was working in a call centre, and I just said, do you know what? I'm quite open to seeing what church is all about. Having grown up in a non-Christian family, I was never really influenced by my family around church, Christianity. That's all I knew of church was my myngi and daki, who went to a capel Gymraeg, organs, wooden pews. That was my sort of perception. When I got invited to church, it just radically changed my life, because I found that there was something that these group of people had that I never had, and I wanted some of that.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I had a purpose in life. I was living for the weekend.
Yeah.
And my outlook on life now was very, very different. So radically changed my life. I used to live a lifestyle of a wild rugby player. And all of a sudden I had nothing to do on a Friday night. And the youth pastor of the church at the time asked me, can I help out with a few rowdy teenagers and doing youth ministry? So I got asked if I could help out to look after some of the young people from Llanelli on a Friday night. Did that.
Yeah.
And there was a man by the name of Mike Adams who very generously donated money specifically to the church to buy its own camera.
Brilliant.
And the youth pastor gave me the camera and said, take some photos. So it all stemmed from that. I taught myself photography. Then I started filming things, putting little short documentaries together. And I really discovered I had a passion for telling stories.
Yeah.
And I thought, how can I run a business doing this sort of thing? And for me, the best route was to go to university. Now, after dropping out to my A-levels in sixth form in Stradi School in Llanelli, I had no qualifications to get into university. So I made the bold decision to quit my job in sales to go to college full-time to get that qualification. So back in 2016, I think, I studied creative media production in college. And after about 2 years, I passed by the skin of my teeth, because as a college student, it's really difficult.
Yeah.
There's no financial support, really. In your uni, it's a bit different. So I passed by the skin of my teeth, got a place to study filmmaking in the University of Wales Trinity St David. And then literally at the end of my first year in filmmaking, I literally went on company's house, registered a business.
Amazing. How did you find university? Because I know when I look back at university from my experience, I loved the social element of university and I enjoyed meeting new people. I was terrible academically in terms of I didn't have any interest in it. I didn't want to be there. The best module I did was actually entrepreneurship. What was your experience at university like?
Well, entrepreneurship is the exact thing that attracted me to university. So when I was in college, I made lots of good relationships with indie filmmakers, people who were very successful in writing, filming, lighting, sound, all these elements that make a film, okay? And I was asking myself, why are these people working in Domino's, Tesco? They've got film degrees.
Yeah.
I don't understand it. And they were really, really talented people. And I asked myself that question, why aren't they actually working in the industry that they've studied? And I think for me, my observations were they lacked the business skills.
Yeah.
So they had the technical skills, but they didn't have the business skills. They didn't have the commercial skills to really earn a living from their skill set, right?
Yeah.
So for me, when I was looking into university, one of the reasons I chose UWTSD in Carmarthen is specifically entrepreneurship, because there was a module on entrepreneurship which really taught you about how to set up your own business and some of the things you need to consider: tax, profit and loss, costs, operating expenses, all these sorts of things. So for me, I was living at Llanelli. I was looking after my dad at the time. I wanted to study quite close. So it was a no-brainer for me when I looked into Carmarthen. And actually, I was helping a friend out film his major film project for his degree. And the guy who was filming behind the scenes there was Dr. Brett Agersberg, who's the program director of the film course in Carmarthen. So I got to meet him, and I literally said, well, I'm thinking about going to university, and I don't know where to go. And obviously, he was like, well, Captain Carmarthen. I was like, I didn't know there was a film course in Carmarthen. So, so that's how it started. But for me, the entrepreneurship was actually really, really important, because for me, when I went to university, I had 2 goals. Plan A, come out with a business.
Yeah.
The whole point of me going to university was to set up a business in the creative industry. Plan B, get a job in television. As a fluent Welsh speaker, I knew I could easily get a job with Tynoplis or Avanti, some of these large independent Welsh production companies, simply because I know, and it's a fact in the industry, producing Welsh language television, there are creatives, camera ops, sound guys and girls, and there's a lot of these people that can't speak Welsh. And I think that some of these people who can't speak Welsh that are producing programmes in the Welsh language, it is shocking. But it shows the need that the Welsh television industry need more Welsh-speaking creatives.
Yeah.
So for me, that was like plan B, right? Working in television, it is hard work. And you get nowhere near as much of a reward as you can, like with myself, working in the commercial world, business to business. It's a far more profitable output for me. And that's the route I chose because, to be honest, I want an easier life. I want to have the weekends. I go to church on Sundays. I was playing rugby on Saturdays. If you want to play rugby on Saturdays, you work in television, it's a tough game.
Yeah. Okay, so you pivoted the business around that sort of approach. Going back to those early years in business then with Stori Cymru, you can learn as much as you can through university and doing that entrepreneurship module, but some of the hard lessons come when you're out there in the battlefield, you could say. What did you learn in those early years, and what were some of the challenges you experienced?
Battlefield, that's right, mate. It is a battlefield. And I think often people ask me, if you could do it again, would you go to university? And I think it was definitely for me the right opportunity. But I think there's so many people, competitors in my world, haven't gone to university, haven't got degrees. So to run a successful video production company, you don't need a degree.
No.
I think it did help me get to that level where I am a little bit quicker. But of course, it's a bit like driving a car, right? You learn on the job. You learn how to drive far more by a near miss, right? Nearly crashing the car. You really learn how to drive a little bit safely. And I think it's that experience of learning on the job where you get to pick up little things and try and improve things. And, something I always tell myself, don't make the same mistake twice. Because for me, if I mess up on a job or, maybe the customer doesn't have a great experience, and it's all early on, right? Because everything's perfect now, obviously. No, we still have challenges, right? But I always used to tell myself, never make the same mistake twice, because if maybe I've learned about forgetting some equipment, or maybe I haven't prepared the script enough, or all these little things that really help produce a really good story, I'd be kicking myself if I made that same mistake twice, because I always look at a job after a day's filming. What have I learned? What went well? I always analyse the day and how we can improve. We can be a bit more efficient, right? If we have this bit of kit that helps us on the job, we'll invest in that. So for me, the battlefield is actually learning how to get back and bounce back stronger, because you're always going to have challenges. You're always going to make mistakes. But I think for me, what's really helped me over the years is integrity and being responsible. If I've made a mistake, if my team's made a mistake, I take responsibility for that.
Hands up,
I don't throw them under the bus and say, sorry, Joe messed up today, Stefan messed up today, my wife, Amy made a mistake. No, I take responsibility, because as a good leader, you have to be responsible for your team. And that's just leadership 101.
Yeah.
And I think for me, being responsible and just owning up, because I've made mistakes. I could write a book.
I think people are far too hard on themselves on that. Like when business, it's not easy. It is basically a trial and error process, and you're very much learning through practical application. But they beat themselves up so much on mistakes that everybody makes, and all of a sudden, then what's that going to do for your confidence? So I think having the mindset that you've had of, we're going to learn from this, and we're not going to make the mistake going forward, I think is quite wise.
And I make a lot of mistakes. And as a perfectionist, I do beat myself up a lot. I really do. If it's, I look at a piece of work or maybe a story or an edit, a bit of music, filming, and I go, oh, it could be that little bit better. But, to the untrained eye, actually, it doesn't really matter that much.
How do you manage that perfectionism? Because you can then go so far into the detail, and then you don't give control to other people. How do you manage it?
I think sharing that is a really good way of understanding, like, good enough is good enough. And in my world, you can spend hours and hours perfecting keyframes, music fades, writing scores, and there's all these little things that you can do to perfect the film, right? The video. And I think for me, like, good enough is good enough.
Yeah.
I say to the team now, Johan, one of my editors, right? He's been working on a project recently, and he's like, oh, I'll just tidy this animation up. I'm like, no, Johan, it's good.
Don't
Get
be
it
perfect.
out. Let's see the client's feedback. Then we can work on perfecting and polishing.
Yeah.
If you spend too much time polishing early on, it might be wrong.
Right? And they might not want that.
They might not want that. And you spend all that time perfecting it. But I think for me, I've had to learn good enough is good enough, because in the game I'm in, time is really, really important. It's precious, and time is money.
Yeah.
If I'm doing this as a hobby, I can take as long as I want to make a film, right? But when you've got a deadline and you've got an invoice you've got to send to a customer, time really does make a difference. And I think that it's just being open to feedback and sharing those things. Because if I share it to somebody, what do you think of this? And they go, yeah, that's great. Oh, okay, I'll put it out there.
Yeah.
It's good enough, right?
Yeah, I think I remember when on my so when I first joined the Narrative Accelerator, when I was a coach on the program, there was a mentor that I had on the program that I really looked up to. And one of the first weeks I was there, he said to me, Andrew, essentially what we're trying to do on this program is get people fail cheap, fail fast, fail smart. And I was like, that seemed completely ridiculous if you ask me. But I understood what he's trying to get to is the more times you fail and you tweak or change things, eventually you're going to land with something that is absolutely spot on. But I think so many people, that perfectionism and not wanting to make a mistake, it stops them from doing things altogether. When I go into a coaching session, I ask people, okay, talk me through the ideas that you've got around business growth, revenue generation. Like, oh, we could do this, 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 and this. And I'm like, what's stopped you doing it so far? And it's perfectionism a lot of the time. You've just got to start, and it will evolve. This is iteration one, and there'll be many more things that I suppose you change off the back of it. So I completely get where you're coming from with that, James. What's the biggest motivator for you now with the business? You're incredibly passionate about what you do, the power of storytelling and video. What motivates you to get up in the morning?
What motivates me? In all honesty, lots of things. I absolutely love what I do. I'm so passionate about meeting people, connecting with people, and the fact that people pay me to film their stories and get it out there into the world. It is an immense privilege to me. I don't make nowhere near as much money as I used to as a sales rep working in sales, but I am far happier doing what I do now. Does it come with challenges? Absolutely. Running a business, it is hard. I think some people think, from the outside, oh, you get to walk your dogs and you get to finish whatever time you're on. That sounds good, doesn't it? Yeah, but they don't see the hard work that goes into establishing a business.
Yeah.
And the hard work it takes to really make it grow. But for me, what motivates me? People, getting to meet new people, getting to hear what's going on in my community, good things. Young people, giving opportunities for young people to thrive in creative industries. For me, I'm really passionate about young people. I'm providing opportunities for those in my community. I went to recently talk at a college that I sit on the Creative Industries Employers Board in West Wales. And I was talking to some of these young people about my story and trying to inspire them. And, years ago, people used to look at creative industries as something you did if you weren't good at maths or science. Whereas now, you can actually do this as a living. It's
Yeah.
not something you pick because you're not good enough at STEM, right?
Yeah.
It is actually something you can make a living and be successful in any area of creativity. You know, you've got art, you've got writing, poetry, storytelling, script writing, film, video editing, graphic design, motion. There's so many different skill sets.
What would your advice be to, say, someone who's 14 or 15 then that wants to get into entrepreneurship or the creative side of business? Because you obviously dropped out at A levels. Would you say, do you have to do your A levels? Do you have to go to university? How would you go about it?
Well, there's so many routes, right, to be successful in the creative industry. I think that's the exciting thing. Whether you're academic or not, you can still succeed in creative industry. I think one of the easiest things is just start making things. So whether you're a 15-year-old and you like telling stories, you like writing them, keep writing them. Because the more you practice, the more you hone your craft, the better you're going to be as you grow up in developing that skill set. So I think for me, just creating, that's a real simple thing that you can do that isn't going to cost money. So it costs you time, absolutely. But I think starting to create is probably the first step. And just getting better at it, you know. If I was to show you one of my first ever films, right, I made 10 years ago, you'd laugh your head off, okay? Because it wouldn't be very good. But at the time, when I was editing it, I think, this video's amazing, look at this. And I look back and go, oh my goodness.
Yeah,
but
you have to take that first step.
You've got to take that first step, and it's all about learning, you know, getting better and better each
Learning
time.
about yourself as well. Like, I think for me, one of the things that attracts me to entrepreneurship is learning so much about me as a person. So I never would have put myself in such a vulnerable or risky position if I was just in a job 9 to 5, day in, day out. What have you learned about yourself in this journey so far?
What have I learned? I've learned lots of things. I've learned that life is short, and if I can run a business and I can do what I do and just enjoy it, then it's worth it all, you know. So for me, the privilege of helping to tell stories and getting paid for it is just something that...
Why is storytelling important? I was going to ask you about what do you find, why is it so important for businesses, communities? What do you think?
Well, I think it's really important because we connect with stories, right? We connect emotionally with stories. You know, whether you've, from a business perspective, right? If you're going to buy something, buy a service, buy a product, well, you've got to have the money to do it firstly, right? But if the money is there, why are you choosing to decide to then make a purchase? Is it because you like the person, you like their story? Is it it's trending and it's just fashionable? You've got all these things, and I think, you know, for businesses, story's really important, right? On a consumer level, okay, story's ultra important when it comes to branding. You know, people have brand loyalty for buying certain clothes or buying certain cars, right?
Yeah.
You buy into that story. It's all about connecting emotionally and how you fit in and relate to that brand. And I think, you know, some people miss a trick, really, when they don't really consider. And the story, the brand story, is a lot bigger than just the logo.
The history.
You know, the challenge I've got as I grow my business is how can Stori Cymru tell its story in a way that it can go beyond just me?
Yeah.
Because it's really hard for me to grow my business when I'm bringing people on board and growing the team. I think got a responsibility to help them understand the Stori Cymru story so that it can sort of sell itself out there. And, you know, one of the things I love, Aled, who I met earlier today, was talking a little bit about, it's great when other people are telling your story without you having to say it. So when people come to me and they go, oh, so-and-so told me you're a good storyteller, it's great, right? It's, you know, it sort of works.
Yeah.
And you know that people are really getting it. When people say to me on LinkedIn, oh, James, you're great at telling stories, that's a testimonial in itself. But I've worked really hard to get to that level where people really get it. And I think that businesses should really think that, you know, telling a story is really important because you might be the most expensive service, you might be the most expensive product on the market. But if you've got a good story, people will buy into it.
They'll resonate with you. I love what you said about basically when you're buying something, you're making any purchase decision, there's always some emotion behind it of why do you choose X business instead of Y business. And I also think it's like, I think the mistake I think a lot of businesses make when they're trying to sell. They sell the detail. So the intricate details of what they're offering instead of what's the output for the person buying it. So take, for example, I know it was a little thing. I was buying a golf club the other day and the golf pro was telling me about...
Do you play golf?
Yeah, I know, yeah, just a bit. And he was telling me about the intricate details of the club instead of saying, well, what's it actually going to do for you as a player? Are you going to hit the ball straight? Are you going to hit the ball further? So I think it's that emotion behind it and what the person wants from it is important. So with Stori Cymru, now your wife Amy works with you as well, and you've built a really good team of people around you. What are you looking for when you're building that team and finding people to be a part of the company?
Oh, it's taken me a long time to crack it. I am now on my 4th editor. Okay, I hope I can be vulnerable here because I think I hope to think it's a safe space we can share this with your audience. But yeah, I'm on my 4th video editor. Now, I've asked myself the question, is it me? Because every young person maybe I've given an opportunity, brought them into the business, it's not quite worked. And part of me's thought, well, maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I'm a bad manager. Maybe I'm a bad trainer. Maybe the business isn't suitable for more than one person. I've asked myself all these questions, and I think, having found a really, really, really excellent video editor recently that just gets it is a huge relief. It's a huge weight off my shoulders. A big relief that I found the right person, because I think as you grow a business, people are so important to that puzzle, and everyone has a part to play. I tell you one now. And Joe and Amy, all of us as a team, that when they win individually, we all win, right?
Yeah.
We all win. If you're happy and you're thriving, that it ultimately feeds into the business. And equally, if somebody isn't performing brilliantly, it has a massive impact on the business itself. So it's taken me a long time to find the right people. And I think that's one of business's biggest challenges.
What would you do differently with the previous 3 to the editor you found now? Was it a process problem? Was it you looking at the wrong things? What would you do differently now?
I think for me, I've been desperate. I've needed somebody, and I've just gone, oh, you've asked me for a job. Okay, here's a job. Literally, I've had young people ask me for a job. I need an editor. And I go, do you want to learn how to edit videos? Yeah. Okay, let's sign you up. And every person that's had the opportunity to come into the office, to be trained by myself and Amy, it's not been in vain, put it that way, right? Every single person who's worked in the business, all my editors, have all played a part in my success today. So it hasn't been wasted in any shape or form. But I think for me, desperation, needing somebody to fill the shoes. I think that, unfortunately, I've been quite naive at times, just thinking that, they get it, right? But ultimately, nobody understands... or put it this way, nobody's as passionate about your business as yourself.
Yeah.
You will never find somebody more passionate than you. But the goal is to try and find someone who's maybe just as passionate or maybe just on the same wavelength. And that's what I've learned to find. Is just finding the right people who are just as passionate about the brand as we are. And I think part of it goes down to personality traits. You've either got the initiative or you haven't.
Yeah, attention to detail, being proactive, thinking about the customer, making the right decisions. I think it comes down to a values thing rather than actually a skills thing, because you can learn the skills, but having those values and behaviours in the first place, not everybody has them. And when you find someone that has got that, where they've got that drive, they want to take responsibility for what they're doing, and yet it's not their business, they're going to do very, very well in life.
I'll share a quick story. Joanne, who's been working with me recently, right? Now, my wife used to work in a call centre in Admiral, so you'd think she'd be very good at answering the phones. Sometimes she'd say, so-and-so phoned. Right, okay, what do they want? I don't know. Well, how am I supposed to get something out of that, right? Joanne... Now, his job role is a video editor, right? But this week, he did something really, really simple. He sent me a message to say that this person phoned from this company, and this is what they need help with. Yeah. Here's their number. I have not taught him how to answer the phone. I've not taught him customer service. He's just gone and done it.
Yeah.
And that might seem like a real big deal to some people. But for Johan, that was probably just a really simple... The phone's rung. I'll pick it up and... he's just dealt with that inquiry. So for me now, that's a potential business opportunity. I'm out in the field filming, and he's taking a call, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that, I don't think any sort of training manual, any onboarding course can really teach you. You're either passionate about what you do or you're not.
Yeah, yeah. And if you're enjoying what you do, you're going to go that level above and actually do things like that. If you're not, if you've got people that are in an environment and they don't really want to be there, that's when you got to be right. This isn't working out. You've got to make a bit of a decision here. Going back, you touched upon some of the hard things you find about entrepreneurship. What do you find the hardest thing about being self-employed?
I think for me, probably one of the hardest things I've experienced recently is compassionate leave. That is something nobody talks about in running a business or encouraging people to start up businesses. If something happens in your personal life, you can take time off work, right? And just be. So, I lost my dad 4 years ago, nearly 5 years ago. That was just about a month after me and my wife got married. And that was the start of my third and final year of my degree. It was a very, very tough time. And it was when I was in the business, 100%. I didn't have another job. It was really, really challenging. And I'm quite proud to say that I finished my degree with a first-class honours. Because actually my father was one of the only people who really encouraged me to go to university. When I said at the age of 20, 21 that I was going to university, my family said, "You're mental.
Really?
Ti'n wyllt, you're crazy. All your friends," this was my mungie, right? "All your friends are doctors and police officers and they've all got degrees. No, you just need to get a real job now." These were some of the things my family was saying. Because I should have done it in the conventional way of going to school, going to college, get a degree, right? But I didn't want to do it that way. I had different, so I took a different path. But more recently, I lost my mother, okay? And, that's been really tough and challenging. This only happened 4 weeks ago, okay? I literally had a funeral last week. I've been working with Admiral. They're a really large insurance company in Wales. One of Wales' only FTSE 100 companies.
Yeah.
Quite proud to say. So I've been working with Admiral for a couple of years. And I've been working on this particular project with the head of cyber security in the company. And we've been making a reconstruction of a particular demonstration. I can't say too much because I've signed an NDA, right? But I'll tell you the bits I can. But we've been making a film that tells a bit of a story about how someone literally saved the business through a cyber attack, okay? And I had to make a decision, right? Because I had this filming day coming up after my mother died. There were so many cogs and moving parts where senior directors were available, people who live and work in London, come down to Cardiff for the day. And this had to be done before the board meeting, the next group board meeting. Now, if I said to Steve, head of cyber, "Steve, I'm really sorry. My mother's died. I can't film next week. We're going to have to reorganise, right?" I just knew that wasn't logistically possible for them.
Yeah.
Because at the time, my best interests were in helping, supporting the customer. And that's something really difficult. I think for me, I probably haven't had time to grieve yet, but I'm built a little bit differently. I've just got to get on. If my mother was still alive, she'd be working in the hospital. She was a nurse. She'd just crack on, And I think I've got that similar work ethic. But for me, it's been really tough because I can't just drop the ball.
You can't stop.
I can't stop. And I don't expect my customers to, I'm not to say that I'm pretty sure, and I have had conversations with some customers who have been really understanding, really empathetic. "Don't worry, we'll film that in April. You take all the time you need." That's great.
Yeah.
But I think when you're working with some larger businesses, like larger corporates, not to say Admiral don't care, but obviously they've got a goal, and I want to do my absolute best to help them achieve that, and I wouldn't want personal circumstances to come into play. But for me, compassionate leave, it's really tough.
Yeah, it's not something people think about.
So for me now, to get to the level where if something happens in the future, and I got a team of people, well, at least I can breathe a bit easier and just understand that, okay, so-and-so is going to look after that, and I can take some time out. But that's really tough. When you're a one-man band or a one-woman band, you're on your own, things like that are really, really tough.
Yeah.
But I think that those difficulties are one of very few disadvantages, or very few cons, if you will. And all the other things are just go over and above and make it worthwhile, I think.
Yeah, it far outweighs the negatives of it. First of all, James, thanks for obviously sharing that. I really appreciate it. When you're looking at people who inspire you from where you are now, and people like role models that you look at, who comes to your mind around that have inspired you through entrepreneurship and business?
Well, there are very, very many people in my life, both that are people working in industry and just generally in the community. I think two big people that have really inspired me in my life are my lecturers in university, Dr. Brett Agersberg and Dr. Matthew Jones, two very special people in my life who really just encouraged me. You know, when I was in my first year, I was getting like 2 2s in my essays. I am not academic in any shape or form. By the end of my third year, Matt Jones was giving me real support on how to be a better writer. And I was getting firsts in my essays.
Brilliant.
You know, and something as simple as that, right, has taught me to make a really good film, you need to be a good writer. And by being better at writing, ultimately benefits my customers, right? Because I can make a better film. Because if you've got a good skill set in writing, it really does come into play. So learning simple things about how to be a better writer, you know, those are some of the things that he probably gave more than he should have, in a sense. You know, I'm booked into this time slot to have my class, but he would help me out of hours. James, if you need something, give me a ring. You know,
goes back to your point around your member of staff. Like, it's infectious when people go above and beyond and they do the little things, and it makes all the difference. I think you're not doing yourself any favours. If he was turning up to work and he wasn't enjoying it and he was just ticking over, then you might not be in this position now. So I do think a lot of the time you have to lead by example, and you don't always realise the impact that you can have or who's actually watching by some of the behaviours and the decisions that you make.
But they are two very special people that have really influenced me over the years. Because, you know, for me, I've not come from a very high education family. Nobody in my family's gone to university. It was quite a big deal for me to get a place, and to have them really inspire me, encourage me. Yeah, go and do this, watch it. And like one of the cool things is, like, as part of my course, we were actually making films. Making films was actually part of the coursework. You know, it was there was essay writing, right? But it wasn't as much as some of the practical things we were getting to do. It's like one of my assignments was to make a vlog for YouTube.
Brilliant.
That was like,
practical.
I did that in record timing. I probably had
That
lots
was
of time
probably
to
going to
work
be
on it.
that was going to be all your tries on a Saturday, was it?
All my tries. But yeah, they were very special people who really encouraged me. And to know, like, meet them recently, and for them to, like, look how far you've come, James, it goes to show that that they should be rewarded, right? I think for the university, I'd love them to really see and invest in creative industries and young people. Like Dr. Matt Jones now, he still doesn't have a contract. Trinity should be employing this man. This man has so much knowledge, they should be giving him a job. And I think if you really want to retain creative industry talent here in Wales, education are a big stakeholder in that. And, you know, that's inspired me. I'd love, you know, after, when I'm 60 odd, I don't want to be climbing mountains with all the film gear. I'd love to be a film lecturer. That's something I'd love to do, because I've seen that the impact they've had on my life. And if I, in 20, 30 years' time, can give back to young people to learn the
Well, that was going to be my
industry.
next question. What does success look like in the future for you?
Oh, success. Well, success is very subjective. I think for me, the fact that I can pay my mortgage and I can enjoy what I'm doing and I get to meet people, and that's success for me. I am already successful. Okay, I don't drive a Lamborghini or all these things, but for me, getting paid to do what I love, that's success. Anything else is a bonus.
I love that. Absolutely. James, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the My Way podcast. I'll leave the podcast with, have you got a quote that you live your life by or that has really resonated with you?
There's so many. You win or you learn. That's one thing that really comes to mind, because, you know, failure is important from learning. So you win or you learn. Don't see it as failure. See it as an opportunity to learn. Win or you learn. Be kind. That's something really, really simple. There's probably lots of other things that come to mind. You win or you learn. And there's probably loads of Welsh things in there as well. You know, as a fluent Welsh speaker, Bois Bach. Bois Bach. That's another one.
Thank you for making the time to come on. It's been an absolute pleasure. I love your energy and your passion towards what you do. That question around success, I think a lot of people can take that from it. It's simple things. Do you wake up and you enjoy what you do every day? If you do, you're already winning.
Absolutely.
Thanks, James.
I am winning.